everyone, welcome back to our podcast, the Book Dragon podcast. Today is episode 5, and I'm Ella, and this is Kane.
Hello.
So first we're going to talk a little bit about prologues. It's definitely a mixed opinion. A lot of people don't read them, they just skip to chapter 1, and that's why a lot of publishers don't like it if we have prologues. They just like it just to start from chapter 1. But with my first book that I've written, it actually has a prologue, and I think that it actually fits better as a prologue than a chapter 1, because it's kind of like, I don't know, like a backstory. So then if it starts with chapter 1, it doesn't really make as much sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on prologues?
Thinking about it actually, like especially with just skipping to just having a chapter 1, it's sort of like you expect chapter 1 to roll into chapter 2, and it makes sense. But the whole point of a prologue is it to be apart from the main story, but it's more of like the world building and sort of the general understanding of what the book's going to be about. So if that's not there and it just jumps straight in, or that is say chapter 1, on chapter 2 you're going to be super confused because you kind of expect it to carry on from that. But I think they're good, definitely for like the more fantasy, sci-fi, those sort of books. It's definitely needed, I think, especially if it's a
Definitely.
vast sort of world building thing, because you need some sort of background information before you jump in. I think at least.
Yeah, exactly, because it wouldn't make as much sense if it just, like you said, if it was in chapter 1 and then chapter 2 is completely different. Whereas if it
Yeah,
was prologue, it makes more sense to. And if you're like doing a time jump, it makes more sense there as well. And it just helps more. And with
yeah,
the world building and everything, it just makes more sense. But I will admit, like, there were like certain books that I read that I did in the past skip the prologue. So
oh
I'm
no.
being two-faced on that one. But now I have a different opinion on that, and definitely like
Yeah,
looking at it as my own perspective, it gives you more of the story, and so yeah, I definitely think it's needed. Um,
definitely. But also with
yeah,
prologues, I think the main thing you have to make sure about is it not being too long, because I think there's been a prologue before which
yes,
is like 5 or 6 pages, and that I've skipped because it's like I just want to get into the story. I don't want to know about some dude 10 years before this actual main story happens. Like it's not. It sort of helps you understand sort of the world of it all, but it doesn't give you any sort of benefit to the main story, if that makes sense. Like you can learn as you go along, um, but at least with like a chapter worth of prologue, I think it's a bit too much. Even just like a page or two, or even 3, that's sort of good, but not 6 to 10 pages on background information.
yeah, there's definitely a limit of how long the prologue should be, but I think if it's needed, if it needs to be longer, and if it has a need be, then it can be as long as what is needed. Because I can't remember how long my prologue is, but it's definitely longer than 4 pages. But I might be able to shorten it on the second draft, but
Yeah,
how long it is now is definitely needed, because if I made it shorter, it wouldn't have made much sense and it would have been very rushed.
yeah, yeah, I get that.
Uh,
So yeah, we
but
were
you
talking
can
about
start
the
the next
prologue and that. What was the next bit? Was it
book series.
book series? I've not read many. I think I've got Dune, which I've only read 1.5 books. Um, Game of Thrones, I read 5% of one book. Do you want to start with the one that you didn't like? City of Bones.
Yeah, I ended up. I was like, which one? Um,
Haunt.
yeah, I ended up DNFing Bones. I
Yeah,
tried reading it like 5 times, and I was just like, so when I want to, I'll try with the second book and
yeah,
go from there. But I just couldn't connect to the writing, and it was putting me slump, so I was just like, it's not worth it. I'm just gonna do it. So I did.
No.
I've nearly finished the Poppy War series.
Oh, nice. There's what?
Halfway through the Burning God.
There's 3 or 4 books. 3. I've still got to read the second one, but the first one I really liked. But yeah, the second one I need to get into again. But you enjoying them all?
Yeah, it's really good. The second one, I think it was a little bit too long.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'm enjoying the Burning God so far.
That's good. Is it different? Because obviously the first one it was kind of slow until about halfway through, and then it was like full on, and then it went a bit slow again.
The first one's more of like the school setting for like half of it, which I actually enjoyed more. It gave me like Nevernight vibes. I actually really enjoyed the first half of the Poppy War.
Yeah, same.
But if you enjoyed the second half of the Poppy War, then you'll enjoy the other two because
okay.
books are more war based, like the second half of Poppy War.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think I definitely like the fact that the beginning was how it was, because it sort of gave you the setup. It gave you the sort of feeling of the characters that are in it. So then when they get thrown into a big war, yeah, it just sort of makes it interesting, I think. But yeah, I think I'll definitely need to sort of prepare myself if the next 2 books are just war and destruction.
Yeah, it's a very sad series. I'm not prepared for the end.
Oh, no.
Yeah, apparently it's a very sad ending, and if she kills off one character, I'm going to be very mad.
Yeah. There's always that one character you don't want to die that probably will die.
Probably will die, yeah. I know. I'm trying to prepare myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen. A series that I want to start, but it's 13 books long, and you're the person that wants me to read it. It's the Bitten series. That's the one thing
Same.
that's like making me hesitant to start. It's 13 books long.
Yeah. But I guess it's sort of because of, or at least the plot in the series, I think if it's that same sort of feeling throughout, I think you'll probably get hooked and you'll read them constantly. But I have a feeling that it'll probably, the first book is again gonna be like the setup book. I have a feeling, especially if it's 13 books long, the first one is probably going to be a bit slow.
Yeah, and I've heard that the books are very different from the series as well, which could be a good thing. But I think they said that from the second or the third book, it's from one of the witches' perspective.
Okay.
So that's quite interesting. But
yeah,
I'd like to know what happens to the characters, because if none of you know, the Bitten series is, or was, I don't think it is anymore.
No, it's, no,
maybe it's still on
it might be.
there. And it ended up getting cancelled after season, I want to say season 3.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
And it didn't leave on a cliffhanger, but it left with a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to read the series.
Yeah. I felt that the ending was like they were going to have another season. So again, it's sort of like, because sometimes they leave it on cliffhangers to keep you guessing, but can leave it at that. But yeah, I didn't have a satisfying ending, I don't think, really. It's just sort of like,
Yeah, it got cancelled before
yeah. That's one issue with American TV series. You get really into it and then they just stop.
It's very addictive, very good. If you're like a fan of like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Teen Wolf and Vampire Diaries, and you're probably like that. The only issue for me, even rewatching it, is the animation of the wolves.
Just a little bit.
It's really, really bad. But if you can like ignore that,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about the animations of Buffy and all of that, I mean, it's better than that. But I guess the time it was made, you kind of expect better.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember what year it started, but yeah, I don't think they had enough funds to like properly
no,
like do it because it was
yeah.
yeah, the series as a whole was really good. What other series can we talk about?
I was thinking of Twilight. Have you read Twilight?
I've read the first two. I haven't
Did,
read from there.
did you like them?
The first book I loved. The second book I didn't really enjoy very much,
Yeah.
which is weird because it's movie wise that's my favorite one. I think.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I want to reread them all. It's a series that I want to go back to. But yeah, I haven't read the first.
Yeah.
What about you?
I've not read any of them, but there's always been a series that I'm
Really?
like I want to kind of read them, but at the same time I'm like, should I? Shouldn't I? Because again, it's a series. I usually try and stay away from series that are more than 2 or 3 books. Um, but with that one, I think because obviously the book obviously did well enough to make a whole movie series out of it, that must give some credit to it. But the overall story, I think, of Twilight is good. So I've always been intrigued about just sort of picking it up and reading it. But also they're quite thick, aren't they? Or am I thinking of different books?
Mm, one of the Breaking Dawn's really thick.
Oh, okay.
The rest aren't too bad. But I think it's like when it first came out, that's when the craze was out of like
Yeah,
the new thing, and everybody wanted to read it, and that's when I started reading it. But
yeah,
I think it's if it's something that you don't really want to read, it's a very long and like you said, the books are quite thick.
yeah, yeah. I just thought of another series was the person who I spoke to last episode. Um, they have a book trilogy series, and the books I think are only about I haven't even got it with me, but they're not super thick, so they're quite nice and quick to read. But the one thing I did like about it is it just felt like one book in 3 parts, opposed to 3 big books that you have to read. And they all sort of mesh into one another quite well, which I think that would help with other series. Is if it's sort of like even if they're thick books, is sort of like if it's a continuation rather than a like 2 years later, or it sort of where it feels like it's picking up where it left off. Where I think a lot of series doesn't do that because obviously they want time to pass to make more issues occur and all of that.
Yeah, the Poppy War it takes off from where I left off.
Yeah,
I think Twilight. I want to say. Um, but yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, but yeah. There's a series that um, you know all too well from me as Dune. um, it took me 3 years to read the first book, which turns out to be 3 books in one. But it's because it's got no chapters. They've done it in books,
Oh, I
so
didn't
it's
know
like
that. It didn't have chapters.
yeah, it's like chapterless. It's like you still have like the page breaks and stuff, so you know that it's going to be like a different sort of part or a different character, but they're not actual labeled chapters. Like, let me see if I can get it.
So they don't have a header or anything, like
Nope,
part
like
one,
I
part
can't.
two, or anything. It
Like
just carries on.
obviously it's backwards, but you just have like a quote from one of the
Oh, and
books,
it just
and
has
then
a
it just carries on.
capital.
Yeah, so that's when you know the next sort of quote unquote chapter is, but there is on the contents, all it is book one, book two, book three in a appendix. That's it. That's all there is on this. So um I think that was quite hard.
Because I was thinking of getting, because apparently there's a movie or a series coming out.
There's been 2 movies, I think. No, there's been one movie, a TV series based on the second book, and then the one that's coming out soonish is a movie of I think the first book, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, I really like it, though it took a while for me to read. I think it was
Do you think
because
I would enjoy it?
I think so. I think it might be a bit different to your normal reads, I would think, because it is quite political and thick with like backstory and characters and all of that stuff. But thankfully, it doesn't focus on it so much so that you're just bored out your mind. It's sort of, it makes it interesting every time something new comes up. It's sort of like, oh, what's this? Um, but yeah, I think for me, when I was reading it, it was like my first proper sci-fi novel I read. So all that stuff that usually comes with sci-fi novels is because the world building is usually a lot more advanced and sophisticated than most books, because obviously it's usually rather Earth with different technologies. But with this one, it's sort of like so far into the future, we've surpassed technology and we don't need it anymore. And sort of so everything is like brand new and made up for this book, like if that makes sense at all.
Okay.
Um,
Because I was thinking of getting, you know, that new edition of June with the guy on the front and the gold. Yeah.
yes,
I was
yeah,
thinking of getting. I don't know. I'm guessing that's just the first one.
yeah. The one you got me, which if I can reach up and grab it, there you go. Yeah, that one. This is the first three books, so not
Oh,
not the book one with the three books. It's like book one, book two, book three. So that's why it's so thick. um, so I might,
I'm nice like that.
yes. I've not read from it purely for the fact it's nice, and then I've got these shabby paperbacks to read from. I think it was especially when I was working and stuff. I didn't want to carry it around in a bag and get bent and all that.
Yeah, it's more of like when you're at home.
Yeah, but it is a really nice book. But yeah, like this is just proof of like this is three books. Um, putting it next to like that's the size difference.
It's massive. Yeah.
But on top of it, there's six books in total. So this is only half of the whole series. Um, but yeah, I've heard that the first one is slightly political, and because it's sort of like brand new in the world, there's a lot to sort of learn and experience and understand and everything's a surprise. But the second one, it's quite heavy on the political side of it all. So in the first one, you have wars and you have fights and like survival situations. But so far in the second one, it's more politics, and it's set like, I'm pretty sure it's set like 20, 30 years in the future from the end of the first one. So it's again,
Oh, so it's not. I'm guessing it's different characters.
it's the same, exactly the same characters. Um, well, at least exactly the same main characters. But again, it's more spun on the political side of it all opposed to battles. But because of that, I
Like
am,
the first one and not the second one.
yeah. But the person that I is a YouTuber, who did like a book club for the first two books. They were saying the second book is definitely uh, particular taste. Like if you really enjoyed the first one, they know people that have really, really enjoyed the first one and just could not get on with the second one. But then you've got others that hate that sort of book, but really enjoyed the second one. But I think the second one at least is more of like if you you kind of bonded with the characters and the world that it's on, and you want to know more or know what happens and stuff. So it's sort of like a history book in a sense of just sort of just understanding more about the world that they're in. Um, but again, I'm really enjoying it, but because it's another extreme from the sci-fi world, it's just taken me a little while to read again. But yeah,
I
I'd
do want to
recommend
get
it.
into sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have it's not a series, but it's Isaac Asimov. Oh god damn it, it's stuck.
Sounds really good.
Yeah. Yeah, like he did iRobot. These two I got suggested. Um this one's super thin. It's only like a couple hundred pages, I think. Yeah, 230 pages. but this was the very first sci-fi novel I picked up, and I only managed to read the first chapter before I was overwhelmed. Because before, all I read was like a couple of YA zombie novels and a couple of John Green books. So going from that to a old heavy sci-fi writer is kind of a big leap. Um, but yeah, Dune I read thankfully a little bit longer wait before I read that. So then I got into like yeah, just different sort of genres and stuff, so I can take it in, I guess, a bit better. But yeah,
Yeah, they're all very different.
yeah,
But
but
yeah, there's a few different series that I'm reading at the moment. A lot I've only just started the first book, and I have to continue with like Carver of the Mark. I want to read the second book, Onyx. I want to read the second book to that one.
okay.
Um, but it's really nice when it's just like a duology, like Warcourse was just.
Yeah, that I do need to
I
read.
don't think, yeah.
Not yet, but oh, I just realized one that we forgot, which we both read and thoroughly enjoyed, the Ascari series.
How can I
Namzara,
forget that one?
Cage, both of our favorites, and we forgot. But
I feel bad now.
that was an amazing series. But though I was saying earlier on, series are good when they're one after another in terms of what happens, because the first one was oh my god, I've forgotten her name.
Asha.
Asha, yeah. So the first one was her. The second one was yeah. So they're all I can't remember. I'm confused.
And
It's
then the
been a
third one was
while.
Sapphire.
Yeah.
So it's like a series where it has all the same characters, but it's
Yeah. Like it's set in the same.
companion novels, so they're
Yeah.
different books. You can read it in whatever order that you want. But if you don't want spoilers, start with the first one.
Yeah.
Because each one has a spoiler from the
Yeah.
so I definitely recommend getting them all in order. But yeah, they were all really good. Like when I look back and I'm just like, which one was my favorite? I can't
No.
pick one. They're all really good in their own way. Like the first one, I'm very fond of because obviously that's the first one.
Yeah.
Its own. The second one's really good as well. And again, the third one is really
Yeah.
good on its own as well. So they're very good in different ways. I
Yeah.
can't say in depth of why
No.
each one is really good because that would spoilers.
Also, they complement each other quite well.
Yeah.
So, like, without one, you wouldn't enjoy certain aspects of the others. But yeah,
Yeah,
they're all
definitely why
really good.
I recommend reading them in order because if you don't read the first and the second one, the third one won't mean as much.
Yeah.
Especially because of all the characters. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's a really good series. I wanted to write another one, but I don't because she's coming out with a different book called Edgewood.
Yeah.
So I'm still really excited to read. But yeah, I want to see the characters again. But yeah, that's a really good series, and we definitely recommend that one.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, there's what's your favorite character? That's one of the questions that I thought about having, and especially talking about Iskari series. Is your favorite character one of the people in that, or is it completely out of any of the ones that we spoke of?
I would definitely say some of my favorite characters is like Asha, Torin, yeah, just some characters from that series definitely.
Yeah.
But also blanking of what her name is from Warcross. It's been
I'm
so
bad
long
with
since I've
names.
read that series, and I'm terrible with names as it is. But yeah, she's one of my favorites. What about you?
Oh, it might one of them might be from the Chronicles of Three, the one that the Tabitha who I did the last episode with. There's quite a few characters in there that I really like, but one that is always quite amusing and for the life of me, I forgot their name as well. Um, yeah, I'm blanking. I can't remember the name, but they're like the heart, the life, and the heart of the like group and everything. They're always sort of cracking jokes, and at the same time, always there if you need help with things and stuff. So it's quite. I'm just really annoyed. I can't remember the name of the character now.
I had to search up her name's Mika.
Oh my god, Maggie. That's it, Maggie. I remember. So Maggie from that series. But one that I'm sort of with Dune, again, I cannot remember the character because the names are quite complex as well. Um, but there's one which is um, so you got the main character, Paul, and it's his girlfriend. So it's not his wife. So it's kind of a spoiler, but not really. Basically, he marries into a family for like to save issues politically. Um, but he doesn't do anything with her. She is just there as his wife. But then he has this girlfriend that he's known for years. They have a child together and all of that. But from the first book, they're like one of the stronger people in the sort of group that you meet up with. Um, and they're just sort of you usually learn quite a lot, not only from the main character's point of view, but like just reading it wise. Um, but it's bad that, as I say, it's my favorite character and I can't remember the name.
I know, I feel like when I was trying to remember their names.
But yeah, I think a lot of the books I've read, I wouldn't say they're my favorite characters, but I think a couple of them I do like. But a lot of the time it's because they're the main focus of the book and stuff like that. But I'm looking around and I can't think of any others.
I have loads of favorites like Syra from Carbon Mark. I really like, and the characters from the book that I lent you, the two notes from Beautiful Girls.
Yes.
Blanking on her name as well. They're some of my favorite characters as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm trying to look and yeah, I'm looking at all the books I've read. And again, it's sort of like, though I like all the characters that I've, at least the main characters in books, then it's hard to sort of pin them as my favorite, I think, because it's all dependent on situations as well.
yeah, I definitely can't pick one.
No.
It's just too many for
Yeah.
reasons. Especially if you read different genres.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to pick just one.
Yeah.
But we're also going to talk about classics. What's the last classic you
read? Never. I'm not sure because it's dependent on what you call classic. Because I think the last one I did read that is kind of classed as a classic, but it's not that old, is Go Interrupted, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago. I read that, but to some people it is a classic because it's like one of the first. I think it's just because of it was like one of the first in that sort of type of book. So because of that, it's kind of out. But yeah, because it's sort of, I think because it's all to do with like mental health and mental home and stuff like that. And I think they had obviously books before about it, but it was always in quite it's always in a point of view with someone that never experienced it. But with this one, it was from someone that experienced it, and that's basically most of the book is on their experiences in that sort of place. So I think that's why people call it a classic. But classics in the general gist of like the old books, I have not read any. I have Shakespeare books that I've got that I want to read, but I've not read any classics.
No Shakespeare, no anything.
Of Mice and Men back in year 8. But that's it.
Didn't they get you to read any in school? Did you just not do
it? It was no. well, with the books, I think it was just Of Mice and Men and a Shakespeare Much to Do About Nothing. But Much to Do About Nothing, we ended up watching the movie for an exam, so we never read the book. And of Mice and Men, we read the book in class as sort of like a like page by page. Each different person was reading a page from the book and that. So we never actually got given a book to read, which is weird because everyone else I know has got given like 2 or 3 books to be like, oh yep, this is your summer read, and it's always like a classic book. But no, I never read any, but there are loads that I want to pick up and read. I think one that I have at the moment is I literally have 3 books, which is of about 10 or 12 of Shakespeare's books, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Again, I'm not sure if that's classed as a classic, but it's like a super small book, and I found it super cheap. I'm like, you know what? I know the movies. I've not watched the movie, but I've heard the movie's amazing. So the book's got to be just as good. So I thought I'll get that. Um, but have you read any classics or have any that you want to read?
I've read tons of classics, especially throughout school.
Oh no.
Made to read quite a few. Um, so then the simple Jane Austen, I read Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and then you got some Shakespeare. So Midsummer Night's Dream, which actually was my favourite one. Then you got Twelfth Night, Macbeth.
Yeah.
The Merchant of Venice. Yeah, there's so many.
A lot.
There's so many that I want to read now because I want to read Pride and Prejudice. Let's see.
Yeah.
But also, I really want to read Little Women. That's really popular at the moment.
Yeah.
I really want to read it.
Didn't they make a movie of it recently as well?
I think there's 2, which I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
There's a really old one, and now there's a new one that they've done. There's Anna Karina. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
I don't know. I've not heard of them before.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about. By Tolstoy that I really want to read, but as most classics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to read that one. Yeah, there's so many classics I want to read.
What's the Jane that you have? Is it Jane Eyres or do you have the writer?
Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte.
Have you read that? Oh, you haven't.
I tried reading a couple of chapters and I couldn't get into it. I don't want to try to get into it. I've got a really nice hardback edition of it as well.
Nice.
Which has illustrations throughout. Yeah, but yeah, I'm really excited to read that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it's kind of like a gothic version of Pride and Prejudice, which is kind of
nice. Make it interesting. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was just gonna say there's like loads that I usually see, like in charity shops or years ago when we had like boot sales and stuff near, at least nearby to me. I used to go and there was always like this book place where there was like dirt cheap books and there was always all these classics and stuff. But annoyingly back then I wasn't all that into reading, so when I saw them I'm like, oh, whatever. But now I'm like, I really want to read that. Like I think one book I have is Great Expectations. That's a huge book. But that was one that again I heard good things about, and it's a classic. I'm like, okay, I want to read that. But I do actually have 1984, Lolita, and Clockwork Orange. I have book-wise. Again, I don't know if they're classed as classics or not, but they're in a Penguin Classics cover and that. But yeah, they're ones that I've got partly because I've heard of them. Another reason is because they're small books. So it'd be nice a quick read. But no, there's whenever I do go on Waterstones and stuff, they always have that like the classic section where they have all those. I think it's rather a black spine or a bluey grey one. But yeah, I always go there. I'm like, okay, that's one I want. That's one I want. But yeah, there's too many to think of classic wise that I do want to sort of pick up and read.
There's so many books and so little time.
Yes. Well, I mean, every time I look up at my bookshelf, I realize that I've not read that many.
I know. I'm thinking that I might have to like unhaul a load of my books. Like the shelf behind this blue one is double stacked.
Oh no.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm probably gonna have to unhaul a load of those because it's like at one point it's nice to have all these books that you can like choose from and you can read, but at the same time, just looking at all these books and that I haven't read most of them makes me
Yeah.
anxious. It's like
Yeah.
there's so many new releases
Oh yeah.
classics that I want to read. It's just like books that I just got because I found them in bookstores that sound good.
Yeah.
So I might just read them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got like a lot of bound classics. That was my granddad's, and a lot of them are Charles Dickens books.
Oh nice.
But unfortunately, I haven't got them on display because there's so many of them. And my bedroom isn't big enough for them, so I'm gonna have to wait till like one
Yeah.
on display. I really want to read those.
Hold on, let me flash off my bookshelf. So they're all so many. But yeah. Help.
Sorry about that. Thought you're over to the dark side.
Yeah. But yeah, there's too many.
There's a few books that they're not classics, but there's a few books that I want to get that are hard to get in the editions that I want.
Oh, okay.
I just treat myself and buy them anyway.
Yeah.
They're books I really want to read anyway.
Yeah. But is there like modern classics? Do you know any that would be classed as modern classics? Because again, I think that's what Go Interrupted is classed as like a modern classic, and then Dune is as well. But I think it's all depending on what kind of genre you focus on as well. Because yeah, they're always depending on the eye of the beholder, depends on what class is a classic or not.
I think I've read some classics that are classic, like Catching the Rye.
Oh yeah.
Good Night, Mr. Tom.
Well, sad movie.
Have you read the book?
No, thankfully.
So sad. And I can't think of other. There's just so many.
Yeah. There's one that not many people have read, like in the sense that it's not like a universal knowledge of it, but The Power. Because that one, I always hear anyone that's read it is being like, this is amazing. I've not read it. I've been meaning to read it for the last 3 years. But because of, again, sort of like same with Go Interrupted, because it's so different and unique, as well as sort of truth, has some sort of truth spun into it.
Is it a dystopian?
Yeah.
Because I found it in W.H. Smith and they had it on like the sale part, and I was thinking of getting it, and then I looked at some reviews, but the reviews at the top were like bad reviews, so then I turned down and I didn't get it. But now I'm just like,
oh no,
because I'm getting into dystopian at the moment, so it would have been in the mood to read that one.
Yeah. So. But I have it if you want to borrow at some point. But yeah, I think that the general gist of the story is that women have evolved to have like these sort of electric sort of powers in a sense. So they kind of physically overthrow men in like high places. So then instead of it being run by old white dudes, the women take over.
I would have liked that, damn it.
Yeah, that's in the sense of what I was saying about like a modern classic, because it's not been done before. It's a unique story, and it's not plausible because I don't think people can wield the power of lightning.
Doesn't a book have to be like out a certain amount of time before it can be classed as a classic? Like it has to be out probably for like years before it can be.
I don't know. I think the general classics, yes. Because I think eventually some of the books that we wouldn't class as classics probably will in like a couple of years. But I think that's what the wondrous thing about like classing it as a modern classic, because it could be fresh out yesterday and people could be like, this is a modern classic because it's
I
is
think
is
some people also class like the Lord of the Rings as a classic,
yeah,
don't they? And like
Hobbit,
Narnia and all that
yeah.
sort of. Whereas like we wouldn't really class it as that, but a lot of people
No.
do.
But I think Lord of the Rings, again, that would be classed to me, and you probably would be a modern classic because, again, it's not been out long enough for it to sort of, for society and everything to go past that sort of understanding. Because I think that's another
Yeah, but I
thing
definitely
is,
see it as a classic, like
oh,
Narnia. I see it as a
oh,
classic.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That will, in that case, I want to read Lord of the Rings, Hobbit. I am kind of curious about Narnia because I watched all the movies and I love the movies, but I never had
haven't
any
you read the
thought.
book?
I never thought of reading the book until recently. But yeah,
I read the first one. I haven't read the rest, but I found a spoiler and I found out how it ends, and then I'm not happy.
oh no,
I'm
goddamn
not happy
spoilers.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
won't say, but yeah.
yeah. Well, one thing with the internet about books I am kind of glad of is like Loki that came out recently.
Mm.
Um, every single time I opened up Instagram or TikTok, it was people posting scenes from the new episode, and I'm like, it's not even been out an hour. Like, please.
You can put a keyword and you can block
Oh, okay.
scene posts about whatever you want.
Thank you. But
So just do that.
that is handy. But yeah, I was just thinking, like, at least with books, it's a little, obviously you can still get spoilers from it, but it's a little harder. Like, it's not going to be
If it's
everywhere.
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not going to get like Instagram videos or Instagram pictures of like clippets from a book and stuff like that.
Mm.
But because of that,
Yeah.
you usually read it, and then by the time you halfway through reading a tweet or something, you're like, this is a spoiler for a book I want to read. Kind
Yeah,
of,
you remember when I saw lots of spoilers about the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo on
yes,
Twitter?
yes.
Oh my God, I was fuming. This girl was literally tweeting the scenes as she was reading it.
Yeah, that's just.
And I was just like, this is a really popular book. Yes, a lot of people have read it, but a lot of people haven't read it, and you've just spoiled a massive plot point in the book.
Yes.
And like she goes, oh, it's really obvious at the start of the book with some of the things that I'm saying. And it's just like
That's not
it
the
doesn't
point.
matter. It's like, and that put me off like a long time reading it.
Oh, it would.
And now I'm reading it again, but now I still have it in my mind like this is going to happen.
Oh no.
And it's just like it wouldn't have been very obvious if I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it kind of spoils the book in a way. That's why I always like I appreciate when people put at the top
Spoilers.
spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I muted that book. So then whenever someone spoke
Yeah.
about it, I wouldn't see it.
That's clever. But yeah, I think though as I was saying, like it's harder to get spoiled from books. When you do, it ruins it all completely. Like at least with TV series and movies, usually spoilers are just sort of like characters or certain scenes. But because it's visual stuff, you're kind of like, oh, whatever. But with books, yeah, it's sort of like you have no idea what's going on, or you have like the blurb information, so you barely know what the book is about. And then yeah, if you got like a big spoiler dropped on you, it's kind of like, well, I don't need to read that anymore.
Plus with reading, you're kind of reading it. I don't know how to explain. You're reading it as your perspective, and you're just looking at it as your opinion and how you visualize the book and everything. But if someone says a spoiler of what happens, it kind of messes with the way that you see the book, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Does that make any sense? Yeah.
No, I get that.
So, yeah. It's
kind of
really
like completely different example, but kind of in the same aspect is like with the looks of characters. Like because obviously again, as you said, you have your own perspective of it all, especially with books, as you usually sort of have your own image in your head with what they look like. Even if it's described on the book, everyone will probably have a different sort of idea of what they look like. So then when people post sort of artwork and stuff of it, it's before you read it, I think. You then it sort of imprints on you. It's like, okay, so that's how they're meant to look like. And then you can't sort of get your own thoughts on how they look, if that makes any sense. Because that
Yeah,
happened with me with City of Bones. Like I have watched the whole series, so I have every single like actor that plays those characters in that series is how they look to me when I'm reading the book. So it gives me a little less like it's I guess at some points it's not bad, but at the same time it's not good because it's sort of it sort of makes you think of instead of thinking on your own, you kind of like imagine them doing it instead of your own perspective. But yeah, with the last Zara and that whole series, you got those character prints, didn't you?
yeah.
Yeah, like that. I think I was glad I got them after I read them all because it was interesting to see the actual sort of writer's interpretation of what the characters look
What they
like.
look like, yeah.
So it would
Rara was completely different for
they
me.
were all completely different to how I thought. But
Like I think Torin was completely like was pretty much how I envisioned him. I don't remember them saying that he was ginger though.
no, I
Am
think
I
some
wrong?
bits like that did throw me off, like rather the hair color or the skin color or the build of them, because I
Mm.
think some characters have like a full in-depth explanation, but some of them is more of like just key features. So then when you see them fully, it's sort of like, okay, I didn't think that. But I think it's nice when once you've read it that you get like an actual artwork from the reader, thankfully, that we were lucky to get.
Yeah.
Because then it's sort of like it won't taint our reading of it. Because even if we reread it, we're still going to have the original sort of thoughts of the characters, I think, even though we've seen it because we've had the time to sort of make them up ourselves, I guess.
I guess that is one way to think of it. I think it definitely helps me when I can like visualize what they look like because then I can because I know a lot of people when they read a book they can't visualize it,
Yeah.
and a lot of
Oh, okay.
time I can't visualize it very well. But if I know what the characters look like, that definitely helps me to be able to visualize the story a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely an opinion that a lot of people would have of
Yeah.
they don't like to see what cats look like. I think it will be different from everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one other example I can think of with that is Dune, like the main character, Paul. The book starts off where they're on this basically the beginning of the book is they're at their home planet and they're moving planets to take over an industry there. Um, and the way it came across, the way all the wording and everything was, it sounded like Paul was like an 8-year-old boy who was like 4 feet tall. But then in the movies or the movie, he's a full grown adult who's probably like 18 years old. But I think because they just specified it as a child and they didn't sort of be like this tall man or this tall young adult, it's sort of when I was reading it, I just imagined this short 13-year-old kid. But in the movies, it's like a 16-year-old man that's like 5.5 feet tall and like really fast. And so then when it got to like these sort of like combat scenes, like it's like
Hmm.
training, I was imagining this 12-year-old boy like doing forward rolls and throwing knives and stuff. Um, but it came in that what came in handy though because as I was, I think when I was halfway through reading it, because again, it's as I said, it took me like 3 years to read it all. I think I ended up watching the movie up to the point where I read to sort of help myself a little bit, sort of get
Mm.
back into wanting to read it. But that helps being able to be like, okay, no, okay, so it's not a short kid, it's a tall teenager. So then when I was reading it,
A
I
little bit
still,
different.
yeah. But like with the way I did it there, I still had my own thoughts of how he looked like, but the sort of physical features like the height and the size and the color of the hair and stuff like that, that was the same. So I sort of carried over, but not so much so that I imagined his actor running around this book the whole time. Um, but again, as you said, it's sort of depending on who it is. Sometimes some people might find that really handy. Um,
Yeah.
especially the fact that one of the characters in the movie was Patrick Stewart. Um, so imagining Patrick Stewart in the book, I mean, it's pretty cool, but at the same time, it would kind of take you out of it, I think, at least for me. But yeah, thankfully, a lot of the books that I do read, they're on the indie side in the sense of like they're not on mainstream publishers, and though it would be amazing to have like a TV series or a film made out of it, they won't anytime soon. So everything is your own interpretation of it all, which I
Yeah.
quite like. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that you want to talk about classics? I think that's
Not really, other than
about classic adaptations.
what like
So like
example.
books to movies. Is there any
Okay.
movies that you've seen that are based off of a book?
Classic wise, I think only Romeo and Juliet. I probably read a couple of others, but the Romeo
Is
and
it bad?
Juliet.
I haven't watched or read Romeo and Juliet.
But have you? Is it the Leonardo DiCaprio one?
I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, you gotta watch. I've only seen the Leonardo DiCaprio one, but that's done in sort of a quote unquote modern times. So it's like, bless you. So yeah, it's not in ye old times. It's done at like I think it's like the 1990s, and instead of swords and stuff, they've all got guns and dealing drugs and stuff like that. So it's like
Very different then.
yeah, but that's the one I watched and I loved it because it was they did well what they wanted to do, which was modernize it. But for the people that have read the book and then watched that, they'll probably be laughing their ass off the whole time. But no, that's book I do want to read. But I think a lot of Shakespeare books I want to read. And then you got oh my god, I'm forgetting all these sort of classic authors and stuff. What's one of the ones that you want to like an author of one you wanted to read?
Jane Austen.
That's
Tolstoy,
one of them.
Charlotte Bronte.
The one who did Moby Dick, Charles Dickens. That's it. Yeah, Charles Dickens. But yeah, there are movies I have seen that probably are classic books, but they're not on my sort of want to read radar. Kind of like Gulliver's Travel. Actually, there's one, the Time Traveler and the Time Traveler's Wife. I've heard are both quite good, and I have watched the Time Traveler movie, so I'm quite interested in reading that. But you got any movies to books to movies that you want to read?
Little Women I want to watch and read. The Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, the one with Keira Knightley, is really good.
Okay.
I think you would really like that one. What else is there?
Narnia.
It's Narnia, yeah. Lord of the Rings I've watched. I haven't read it. So yeah, I want to read that. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah. But I think especially with classics, because there's so many, you probably will forget about some until you see it. So yeah, I'm expecting that to happen.
There's probably so many that I'm forgetting. Yeah.
Cool.
What are you reading at the moment?
I
reading the same stuff.
am reading. Yeah. I'm reading Sleeping Around, which is the one that we both got given to review read.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah,
it's
that one.
Though, I think, but yeah.
No, that was the right way around, I think.
Oh, okay. It's
or unless
me.
No. Yeah, that I'm quite enjoying at the moment, and that's the main focus at the moment because they wanted it read at a certain time, and I want to kind of try and abide by that. Also, it might help me read a bit quicker. I've got your draft that I'm still sort of in and out of reading.
Slacking.
I know.
Slacking.
And then I got a manga. But
I want to read too.
Yeah.
I might do that one.
Yeah, I think there's one other. There's a Harley Quinn comic, which I think I mentioned a while back that I'm still only like halfway through, but I want to finish that off. But because I've got that sleeping around to read, I'm sort of focusing on that at the moment.
Well, I forget, what was that other horror manga that you got and it was wrapped?
Oh, Ibitsu, I guess it could be.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
I want to borrow that one.
yeah, I need to read that one. But it's only the one, so and then Doubt 2, we both got to read. But yeah, what ones are you reading or halted?
For those who don't know, I started a couple of part-time jobs, so I haven't had time to read or write in the last 3 weeks. So I'm still reading The Burning God by R.K. Kwong, and I'm still reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I'm also reading Sleeping Around, and I'm also reading I'm in a book club, and we're reading You Had Me at Holla.
Nice. I've heard good things about that.
Yeah, it's good so far. So yeah, I'm reading quite a few things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I'm reading.
You could say I'm reading Dune, but I don't know if you can see the bookmark. I'm like halfway through, but I've not opened it in about 4 months. But thankfully with Dune, I can get away with not reading it for months at a time and then go back into it and read it again. Well, not read it again, but start off. Yeah.
Take you a few years to reach every book.
Yeah, that's fine.
How many books are there? 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that one.
Well, there's six in the original series, and I think there's like another 12. But they're written by, I think it's like the author, the writer's sons or something. But I got told by quite a few people that they are literally just money grabbing at this point. They're apparently really bad. There's no joy out of it. There's nothing relevant. They're just sort of throwing in random stuff, trying to make books so then they can get money. But so I'm avoiding those at all costs.
Fair enough.
But I mean, 6 is enough.
Yeah. But, yeah, there's so many books I want to get to very soon. But yeah, those are the books I'm currently reading.
There is one that I'm audiobooking, which I've not audiobooked in a while. I need to get it up because I've forgotten the name of it. But it's one that I heard of a while ago, which is, I think it's like a romance, but at this point there's no romance going on. Islands of Mercy. I don't know if you've heard of that. Hold on, let me get over. Oh, it's playing. Don't play. I don't know.
Oh, I've seen that around.
That cover, yeah. I don't know what the hell it did to my camera there, but
yeah, I kind of saw it. It's a bit blurry, but yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. That I want to say I'm halfway. No, I'm not even a quarter way through yet. I've got 9 hours left. But that I'm enjoying, but at the same time, because it sort of goes back and forth between some characters and some that you never hear back from again. So it's sort of a bit weird the way it's written at the moment. But I am only a quarter way through, so they could go back to it and it could all be relevant. But because of the audiobooks were handy when I was traveling, but because I'm not traveling anymore, I have no real reason to listen to audiobooks. Because if I have free time, I'm usually reading or writing. So I've kind of neglected that one for a while.
Okay.
Done more than you.
Been roasted already. Right? Okay, yeah, I think that's everything that we've wanted to touch on today for episode 5. I think next episode will be another writing episode, I think.
Yeah, we've not planned that yet, but I think writing would be a good one to talk about, I think.
Yes. But like we said last time, if any of you want to guest star, just message us on Twitter or Instagram or here on YouTube. And you don't have to have the video, it can just be audio. But yeah, just let us know if you want to.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And see you next time. Bye. Everybody.
Bye.